Chapter 15. Aralani had planned their arrival at sunrise very carefully, making sure the Vigilant and Greyshrike arrived in the planet's orbital shadow and a sufficient distance out that they could make a quick exit into hyperspace if the battle dreadnought Thrawn and Lakinda had sent another warship to take its place. But as far as she could see from the Vigilant's position, the black disk of the planet was alone. She gazed at the darkened world in front of them, an unpleasant chill running through her. Civilized worlds generally had lighting patterns that were visible at night, either navigational aids or just the lights of traveling vehicles. On a handful of special worlds like Chilla, those lights were few and far between, but they were still there. But on Sunrise's nighttime surface, there was nothing. Either the war had utterly devastated the planet, or the survivors were cowering in the darkness, afraid to show anything that might attract their enemies. Wutro, standing beside Aralani's command chair, had clearly seen the same absolute darkness and come to the same conclusion. "And Thrawn calls this place Sunrise?" she asked. "So he does," Aralani said, wincing a little. "Whether he believes the name is appropriate is a different question." She keyed her comm, double-checking that it was set on a tight beam that wouldn't leak out to any eavesdroppers who might be lurking in the area. "Captain Lakinda, this is Admiral Aralani," she said. "Opinion?" "Our sensors aren't showing any ships or other power sources in the area," Lakinda's voice came over the speaker. "However, that isn't necessarily conclusive. The region the warship was guarding was on the other side of the planet. If there's really something there that the aliens are interested in, that's probably where it will be." "Agreed," Aralani said. "On the other hand, if your skirmish worried its masters enough to send more than one replacement, they should be positioned so as to watch all approaches, including our current one. The fact that neither of us is picking up anything suggests—" "Movement, Admiral," Biklian cut in from the sensor station. "Coming around the starboard edge of the planet." "Get me a reading," Aralani ordered, peering at the sensor display. The object was big, easily big enough to be a major warship, but it was moving along in an almost leisurely way, apparently not in any hurry. Had it failed to spot the two Chiss ships out here? "Passive sensors only. Captain Lakinda?" "We're scanning it now, ma'am," Lakinda said. "Belay that," Aralani said. "Shift your scans to aft and flanking. I don't want something sneaking up on us while we're all gawking." There was just the slightest hesitation. "Yes, ma'am." "She does so hate to be left out of the action," Wutru muttered. "I don't think running out of things to do is going to be a problem," Aralani replied. "Biklian?" "Analysis coming up now, Admiral," Biklian said. "It's about the Vigilant's size, irregularly shaped, not any warship configuration we've seen before. Surface albedo suggests rough rock with admixed iron and other metals. Orbital path is constant, no evidence of motive power." "I'll be damned," Wutru said suddenly. "Admiral, it's a moon." "Senior Captain Wutru is correct," Biklian confirmed. "A very small moon, or possibly an asteroid." "Interesting," Aralani said. "The last time she and her bridge crew had had a conversation about an asteroid. Give me a reading on orbital eccentricity." "One moment, ma'am." Biklian paused, eyeing his displays. "Preliminary reading is .005. "Practically circular," Wutro said darkly. "Probably not a random gravitational capture, then. Are you thinking what I'm thinking, Admiral?" "Very likely," Aralani said. "We're reviewing the records now, Admiral," Lakinda said, and Aralani could visualize the senior captain's eyes narrowed in concentration. "Given the limited length of time we were here, it is possible that we just never saw it. A precise timeline analysis might be able to backtrack the asteroid's orbit to be certain, but that will take time." "Which we may not have," Wutro warned. "I trust you've had a chance to review our report from that last Nikerdun base?" "Yes, ma'am." "We have," Lakinda said. "Are you thinking this might be another of the camouflaged missile launchers that the attackers use there?" "I think it very likely," Aralani said. "If it is, it has to have some kind of sensor array to know when to launch," Wutru pointed out. "In which case, it may have already spotted us." "It may," Aralani agreed, gazing at the unpretentious blob floating across the sensor display. "Or it may not. Wutru, we've got Thrawn's records of the Springhawks and Greyshrike's battle here, don't we?" I think so, Wutro said, punching keys on her questies. Yes, we do. He came in on a different vector than the Grey Shrike did, Aralani said. Run the sensor data and see if you can spot that asteroid anywhere. Maybe at the corner of one of the scans, where no one was looking. He was conducting a battle at the time, Wutro pointed out as she continued to work the questies. So there's a good chance that even if it was there, he'd have missed it. A fair chance, anyway, Aralani corrected. Even in the middle of a battle, there's very little that gets past him. Well, given that it would have been drifting around the opposite side of the planet from where the battle was taking place, I promise not to tease him if it did. Wutro put the questies away. I've got the sensor techs working on it. Aralani nodded. Biklian? Still reading as a fairly normal asteroid, ma'am, Biklian said. Unfortunately, the data profile from passive sensors is limited. If there's a missile launcher hidden inside, there's no way we're going to pick up on it. Which may be something we can use to our advantage, Aralani said thoughtfully. If that really was a weapon that had been brought in since the last skirmish, and if there was another unfriendly warship lurking on the other side of the planet. Continue passive sensors. Captain Lakinda, are you game to try something dangerous? As opposed to just being part of the expansionary defense fleet, Wutro added. Yes, ma'am, of course, Lakinda said, sounding a bit uncomfortable with Wutro's dry humor. Good, Aralani said. Here's what we're going to do. Across the Grey Shrike's bridge, Wickav gave her helm controls one last check. We're ready, ma'am, she said, looking over her shoulder at Lakinda. Acknowledged, Lakinda said, eyeing the data on the helm display and mentally crossing her fingers. She would put Wickav up against any pilot in the expansionary defense fleet, but the kind of precision Lakinda was asking from her this time was beyond anything Wickav had ever done before. But Aralani wanted it, and Wickav had assured them she could do it, and so here they were. Shrent, inform the Vigilant that we're ready, she ordered, looking over at the combat status display. Whatever the next few minutes brought, the Grey Shrike was ready for battle. Vigilant acknowledges, Shrent reported. Admiral Aralani says we can go at your convenience. Acknowledge, Lakinda said, consciously bracing herself. Wickiv, 3, 2, 1. There was the usual visual and mental jerkiness as the Grey Shrike performed Wickiviv's in-system jump. The black disk of sunrise abruptly filled half the viewport, and the hyperdrive status indicators changed as the planet began pulling the ship deeper into its gravity well. 30 degrees to port side, barely a kilometer distant and moving away from the Grey Shrike along its orbit, was the asteroid. Port side yaw 30 degrees, Lakinda ordered. The Grey Shrike began its yaw turn, and Lakinda focused her full attention on the irregular mass of rock. If Aralani was right about this being the same weapon used against the Nikardan base, and if whoever was monitoring the sensors assumed the asteroid was about to come under Chiss attack, Lakinda's only warning would be the massive explosion as the shell disintegrated and cleared the weapon to fire. If that happened, the Grey Shrike would have only that small handful of seconds to get in the first shot, but whoever was controlling the weapon was evidently not the nervous sort. The Grey Shrike finished its turn, lining itself up with the asteroid without sparking any reaction. Wickiv, increase speed to match, Lakinda ordered. Excellent job with the jump. Thank you, ma'am, Wickiv said, increasing speed, matching, and holding distance. When do you want to start closing the gap? Apros asked from beside Lakinda's command chair. We'll wait until Aralani's in position, she told him. Vimsk, any sign of the Vigilant? Not yet. Yes, there it is, the sensor officer interrupted herself. I see it, Lakinda said, eyeing the tactical display. The Vigilant had emerged into view a quarter of the way around the planet ahead of them, farther out of the gravity well, in a similar position to the spot the Grey Shrike itself had held during the previous skirmish. If the aliens had sent another ship, and if it was again positioned to monitor the same section of the planet, it now ought to be in full view. The secondary sensor display lit up as the Vigilant began sending visual and sensor telemetry. And there it was. A battle dreadnought of the same configuration as the one she and Thrawn had tangled with 2 weeks ago. Lakinda frowned. No, not just another warship. It was the same warship. The battle scars from Thrawn's breacher and laser attack on its port side were unmistakable. Apros spotted it too. So they just sent it back? I'd have expected them to at least slap a fresh coat of paint over the damage before they let it out again. Apparently not, Lakinda said. Unidentified warship. This is Admiral Aralani aboard the Chiss Expansionary Defense Fleet warship Vigilant. Aralani's Tarja words came over the bridge speaker. Please identify yourselves. Should we let the Vigilant know it's the same ship? Apros suggested. Lakinda shook her head. I'm sure Aralani's already figured it out. Chiss warship, you intrude in an area where you're not wanted, a harsh voice came back. Leave immediately or face severe consequences. Lakinda straightened in her chair, peripherally aware that a ripple of sudden interest was running through her bridge. None of the ships they'd faced here earlier, not the battle dreadnought or any of the gunboats, had responded to their hails. For them to suddenly be talking was a new wrinkle. More than that, it strongly suggested that Aralani's plan was working. The enemy commander, secure in the knowledge that his asteroid missile could deal a death blow to the Grey-Shrike at any moment, was hoping to worm a little information out of Aralani before he destroyed both ships. At the same time, with the Grey-Shrike supposedly sneaking up on the main confrontation from behind the asteroid, Aralani's mirror plan to gather data before springing her own surprise attack would also be obvious to him. Some commanders, Lakinda reflected, would have accepted the simple military value of their perceived advantage and merely used it to overwhelm the opponent. This one was cooler and more ambitious. The enemy knew he had the upper hand because he had a secret weapon. Aralani knew she had the upper hand because she knew about the asteroid, and the enemy didn't know she knew. Mentally, Lakinda shook her head. Even Thrawn might have trouble following this one. Wicked unidentified warship, this is Admiral Aralani, Aralani replied. Please clarify. Who exactly is it who doesn't want us here? This world has been devastated by an attack from an evil that calls itself the Nicardan Destiny, the alien said, still in that same severe tone. We were begged by the survivors to stand guard and protect them, lest the Nicardan or other scavengers take advantage of their weakness and plunder the few remaining scraps. Lakinda frowned. Unless he was lying, which was certainly possible, then there were still some people alive down there. The question would be whether there were enough of them to persuade the Magus not to go through with her mass suicide plan. But that would be Thrawn's problem. Lakinda's current problem was sitting rather closer to hand. An interesting coincidence, Aralani told the alien. As it happens, we're here for the same reason. Perhaps we can join forces. We were begged for help by the survivors. Yes, I heard you, Aralani said. Can you give me the name of your contact on the planet? There was a sound that sounded like tearing metal. Do you think me a fool? The alien demanded. I will not offer useful information to an intruder. I'm sorry to hear that, Aralani said. We were invited by the Magis. You may have heard of her. What is a Magis? The alien sneered. A small local dignitary? My mandate arises from the planetary leaders themselves. Their names? I do not need to offer you any defense for my presence. Their names? Aralani repeated. Captain, the asteroid is rotating, Vimsk spoke up. Very slowly, but the changes in reflection from the surface stone are unmistakable. Getting into position to target the Grey-Shrike? Galaxu, I need a way to disable that thing, she said, muting the conversation between the Vigilant and the alien commander. How do we do that? I'm not sure we can, ma'am, the weapons officer said hesitantly. Not until the shell is open. So let's figure out how to open it, Lakinda said. What do we know? The shards the Vigilant found at the Nicardan base didn't have any scoring or residue, Galaxu said. That suggests the shell wasn't blown off explosively, but rather via mechanical means. The bits of metal dug into the shards suggests a spherical isokinetic framework, initially contracted under pressure around the launcher. When the pressure's released, the framework expands violently outward, with prongs or struts attached to it, pushing against the sections of the shell and shoving them apart. You can see the fracture zone lines on the surface where the breakage will happen, Vimsk added. She touched a key, and an overlay appeared across the asteroid's sensor display image. They're too regular to be anything but deliberate. Lakinda scowled. She'd assumed the shell would be blown by shaped charges scattered around the surface. charges they could either prematurely detonate with lasers or disable with plasma spheres. But if the entire mechanism was deep inside the shell, there was probably no way to get at it from the outside. "What about command transmissions?" she asked. "Someone ordered the asteroid to rotate, and someone has to order the shell to splinter and the missile to launch. Can we jam the signals or disable the receiver?" "We could if we knew where the receiver was," Galaxu said. "Problem is, we don't." "Actually, with something this size, they'll probably have multiple receivers," Shrent put in, "scattered around the surface so that there would be one in range no matter what the asteroid's position or angle was. And there was no way they could saturate the entire surface with plasma spheres. Even if they had enough fluid, they didn't have enough time." "All right," Lakinda said, gazing at the fracture line map. Vimsk was right. They were extremely regular, forming rough hexagons on the surface. She felt her eyes narrow. Rough, small hexagons. "Galaxu, are those sections big enough to fire a missile through? If not, there must be an area where they're bigger, which would mark the spot where the internal framework is more open," Galaxu said, nodding. "In which case, we'll know when it's nearly in firing position." "Vimsk?" Lakinda asked. "Setting up a search pattern now, ma'am," the sensor officer confirmed. "Good," Lakinda said. "Make it fast." "Once we find it, what do we do?" Apris asked. "For starters, we don't let it get fully lined up on us," Lakinda said, thinking quickly. Part of Aralani's plan had been for Lakinda to find a way to disable and capture the hidden weapon while the Vigilant kept the larger warship busy. But she'd also made it clear that if Lakinda had to destroy the asteroid to protect her ship, she shouldn't hesitate to do so. "Unless, Galaxu, ready all weapons," she said. "I'm going to want lasers, breachers, and spheres, in that order. Vimsk, let me know as soon as you see something that looks like one of your larger shell sections coming around toward us. Wikivev, get ready to fire full reverse thrusters." There was a brief chorus of confirmations from the other officers. "As soon as one of the larger sections comes into view, we're going to try to laser it open," Lakinda continued. "Once we've got access to the inside, we'll send in breachers to burn through a section of the isokinetic framework, hopefully messing up the expansion mechanism, followed by spheres to shut down the missile launcher's electronics. If we do everything fast enough," she glanced at the tactical, confirming that the Vigilant and alien warship were still squared off against each other, and if Aralani can keep their attention on her, we may be able to disable it before they realize what we've done. "Worth a try," Apros agreed. "At which point, we'll have to hope we can take down the battle dreadnought before they can destroy it like they did the gunboats our last time around." "They won't get a chance this time," Lakinda told him, "because as soon as we've disabled it, we'll circle to the other side and take out any missiles they try to throw at it." Apros' forehead creased slightly. "Sounds a little risky." "The Admiral wants the asteroid missile," Lakinda said. "I intend to get it for her. Any questions?" His lip twitched, but he shook his head. "No, ma'am." "Then get over to Galaxu," she said, nodding toward the weapons station. "He'll be busy coordinating the attack and may need an extra set of hands." "Yes, ma'am." With a nod, Apros crossed to the weapons console. "Vimsk," Lakinda prompted. "Still scanning, ma'am," the sensor officer said, leaning close to her displays. "The sections are still running the same size. Captain, I think the battle's about to start." Shrent spoke up from the comm station. Lakinda keyed the comm back on. "Or we will have no option but to do whatever is necessary to drive you from this system," the alien was saying. "Everyone look sharp," Lakinda called. "The launch area must be coming up. They wouldn't want to open hostilities with the Vigilant unless they were ready to take us out. Shrent, did the alien say anything useful when I wasn't listening?" "There were one or two things, ma'am," Shrent said, his voice a little strained. "With all due respect, I don't think this is the time." "There," Vims cut in. "Larger section coming into view." "Galaxu, there's your target," Lakinda said. "Wait until enough of it is in range, then open fire." "Yes, ma'am," Galaxu said. 10 more seconds should do it." Lakinda looked at the weapons officer's tactical setup. He had the spectrum lasers split into groups, each group programmed to start at one of the section's vertices and then sweep both directions along the fracture zones. By the time they'd finished with the nearest set of lines, the far edge of the section should have rotated into range and be ready for the same treatment. If the zones were thin enough, the whole section should be free in 5 to 10 seconds. If the rock was thicker, they might still be at it when the battle dreadnought woke up to the danger and launched countermeasures. Galaxu's timing countdown was nearly "Stand by to fire," Lakinda called. 3, 2, 1. Through the viewport, the lasers blazed out, their beams marked by slightly fuzzy glows where they ionized or vaporized the bits of gas and dust between the Grey Shrike and the asteroid. The energy beams dug into the rocky surface, started their coordinated sweeps along the fracture zones, and without warning the entire asteroid exploded, hurling shards of stone outward in all directions.